You could go to the beach and go surfing, enjoying the sand and sea, or you could stay inside and watch Jihad with David Wood and me. It's January, it's cold to surf. Better track the jihadis on their turf. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome yet again to This Week in Jihad. And yes, today is January 10th. I see that people did notice that I scheduled this for March 10th, and I figured it out just in time. Justice prevailed. And so we are here. David Wood is here. How are you, David Wood?
Hey, how's it going? The poet laureate of America.
Yeah, I'm still waiting. Nobody has not even one person has taken up the challenge to write a poem like it. And so, therefore, I must be a prophet.
Yeah, you need to compile these all into one video one day and just issue the challenge. And again, for everyone who's watching, um, Robert Spencer has challenged people to produce a poem like his, and if you can't, then you have to admit that he is an inspired prophet of God. And oh, little side note: when you finally try to meet his challenge, I will be the judge of the contest because that's how it works. Remember, that's how it works. Muslims, you say, produce a chapter like it, produce a chapter like the Quran, and then people do it for 14 centuries, and then you say, no, but we're the judges. We're the judges of the contest, and we say that the Quran is better. Yeah, yeah. Completely unbiased judges of that dispute, right? Okay, well, you guys say the rules. We just play by.
Yeah, actually, I think it's a couple months ago now, and I'm not really sure if I'm recalling this correctly, but I think Hatun made a video called Robert Spencer, Poet or Possessed. And
That's funny.
that was a collection of some of the early poems. But now I've moved into a later period in my literary development, and so yes, we need to have an update. And all this is happening, of course, David, after my career has been destroyed and it's all over.
Oh, wait, you found out from Muslims that your career's been destroyed? What did you
Every
do?
day, every day I hear this, even still, because several months ago now, I was on a show with Daniel Hakikaju and what's his name? Jake, the guy, the Muslim metaphysician. And they supposedly ruined me completely. I don't know exactly how that works, because it seems like I'm busier than ever. I got 2 books in the works, and everything is going very quickly. But that's what they must know, right?
Yeah, that's a thing that never ends in Dawa. They'll look for any place where they conclude that they made a good point, and they'll say, therefore, your career is over. Your career has been ended.
So can I
Because
go on
that,
vacation? I
oh
could
yeah, yeah,
go.
yeah,
I could go
yeah, you can
surfing.
retire. Yeah, you can retire because they say your career is over because of this one thing, one live stream. But notice, I mean, Daniel Hakikachu defends wife beating. He says it's a good thing. He
His
defends
wife agrees too,
yeah, he defends
or else.
subjugating unbelievers, taking sex captives, all that stuff. He even defended having sex with a 5 year old, a 4 year old, a 3 year old, even an 11-month-old baby, as long as you get parental consent. What's interesting is, does anyone say his career's over for that? No, because that makes him the hero of many, many Muslims who share his views. Also, notice someone like Daniel. Uh, Daniel, interesting fellow. In that debate, he just flat out lied. He said, according to the Catholic Encyclopedia, Mary was 12 when she was married to Joseph and got pregnant. So you can go to the Catholic Encyclopedia. It says no one has any clue how old she was.
Yeah,
And so
he's a big liar. He was
yeah,
actually challenging me on canon law, and I wanted to get into it, but the host was tired of talking about the church and all this minutiae, and he changed the subject. But Hikikaju showed that he had no idea what canon law is, or how it applies. in the Catholic Church, much less the Orthodox Church. I mean, I actually am an Orthodox Christian myself, and he was quoting Catholic canon law to me as if it would apply to me, and then referring to a political position of the Russian Orthodox Patriarch, and I'm not Russian Orthodox. And he just showed that he doesn't have the slightest clue about any of this. But you know what I think is even more interesting, David, about Hakikaju is that he's now embarked on a campaign to discredit the Talmud, and he's dragging out all the usual proof texts that show that supposedly show that the Talmud is evil.
Wait, doesn't his God quote the Talmud as revelation?
Yeah, chapter 532, that's right. But there's more, because he says it's terrible because the Talmud allows child marriage. And I think, wait a minute, you're the guy who publicly justified child marriage. And suddenly it's bad now when it's in the Talmud. I mean, it's not actually, he doesn't even understand how to deal with the Talmud. It's not actually something that's approved in Judaism, but he doesn't know that. He just sees it in a text and thinks, oh, they must work like the Quran. It says it in the book, that's it.
Yeah, and so that's Daniel, and then of course you had the other guy there, Jake, the Muslim metaphysician. Jake challenged me in like 2022 to a debate on a topic. I said, fine, we'll do that topic, but if you get to pick a topic, I get to pick a topic. So we'll do two topics. He backed down. Then he challenged me again. I accepted the topic, but I said, if we're going to debate your topic, I get to pick a topic too. And I picked I didn't pick some weird, unfair topic. I said, okay, if you want to debate whether God is a Trinity, which basically means you want to spend the entire debate attacking the Trinity, fine, but we'll also debate, was Muhammad a true prophet? Those are kind of big issues, right?
It's reasonable.
So he requested a debate. I agreed. He backed down. He requested a debate again. I agreed. He backed down. He requested another debate. I agreed. He backed down. Anyway, long story short, I agreed to 4 debates with this guy. He backed down from all of them. Then he tweeted to his followers, David Wood is a coward. I have challenged him to a debate, but he has backed down. It's like, wait, I've agreed to every single challenge. You've backed down from all 4 of the debates that I agreed to, and he runs and tells his followers that I'm the one who's running. I'm a coward. This is how these guys. So notice these are like the. I've never seen him. I've been to prison. I spent years in prison. I have never in my life met people who lie as freely with as little concern for consequences as the Dawa guys. They know that there is no accountability for them. They can lie about Jesus. They can lie about Mary. They can lie about Abraham. They can lie about Isaac. They can lie about anyone they want. Their community will never, for even 1 second, object and say, "Hey guys, maybe we should stop this sort of thing." Never crosses their minds. But any little, and what they do is they'll look for any like gotcha moment. If they can ever say, our guy got you here, they say, therefore we can completely dismiss everything you say forever and ever. And what that really is, they're trained to do this because they don't have answers for stuff, right? I mean, if we're talking about a lot of these stuff, there are no answers to this. It's just what your source is saying. We're telling the truth. So they don't want to actually have to do the work of trying to figure out answers. And so the methodology in Islam has always been, don't respond to the person, discredit the person. If you discredit the person, you don't have to deal with the arguments. And what's absolutely amazing is if we applied this standard consistently, your Dawa guys, the heroes of Dawa, are the biggest bunch of liars I've ever seen. So if anyone's discredited, it's them. But they're the heroes of Islam. They're the heroes of Islam, the biggest liars in the world, with the creepiest views. I mean, you've got Hakikaju. Okay, an 11-month-old is fine. You can bang an 11-month-old baby as long as you get parental consent, and
as long as you're not Jewish. If you're Jewish, it's evil. If you're Muslim, it's great.
Yeah, Muhammad Hijab. I mean, this is the guy who sends us golden showers. Why don't you give each other golden showers? He tells atheists to commit suicide. And Muhammad Hijab has said that if you just go with the Quran, you will conclude that you can have sex with a 5-year-old. He believes that Muhammad trumps what Allah has made halal. And of course, as you know, that means that he's worshiping Muhammad. Anytime you take what a man says and says this trumps what Allah has said, you are worshiping that man according to Muhammad. You got Ali Dawah saying that if his daughter was menstruating at the age of 9, he'd tell her she's ready to be married. You've got you've got Sheikh Uthman, who actually faked a hate crime against himself, squirts some fake blood on his little garment there, and then, oh, David Wood and the apostate prophet, look what they're doing, ah! And then he goes out and he his Dawa buddy says, hey, I'm having some marital problems. Could you talk to my wife? And Sheikh Uthman bangs her and marries her while she's still married to that dude. So this lady was married to two Muslim Dawa guys at the same time,
Yikes.
getting banged by Sheikh Uthman. You are dealing with the least credible people the world has ever seen. These are the heroes of Islam. But you, Robert, you've been destroyed.
Yeah, I also think, David, it's an expression of laziness that the Dawa guys can say, oh, Spencer's destroyed because of one show that most people haven't seen and are never going to see and don't care about anyway, and it didn't even actually happen the way they said because they're lying. But anyway, even if the one show was a disaster, which it was not, that doesn't actually say anything about all the books, all the articles, everything that I have written about the Quran, the critical Quran, the history of jihad, the truth about Muhammad. They can't refute any of that, and they don't even try. They're just taking the lazy way out and saying, oh, this one show just ruined everything. Mm-hmm. So, and that frees them from any obligation to confront the evidence that I present in those books.
Yeah, exactly what I said. And they're trained to do this by their Dawa heroes, their Dawa champions. Guys, don't actually engage with the arguments or with the evidence. Don't look at what they're saying. Don't look up the verses. Don't look up the commentaries. Definitely don't read their books. Don't think any. Just when you see them and they bring up some argument, just say, your career is over. How are you still here? And then you don't have to learn to think. You don't ever have to think about anything. Just rest assured that the Dawa guys and their fake hate crimes and their child molestation and all this stuff have got you covered.
Yep, that's it. So, now that both of our careers are destroyed, shall we go on to the actual jihad?
There's been no jihad, Robert. I've seen no such thing.
Unfortunately, there has been jihad, David. I'm sorry to say. Let's see, where to go? There's so much. There is so much, and I had some... Oh, yeah, I loved this. This is a good place to start. The Imam Abdul Malik Ali. Do you know him? He's in Santa Clara, California, at Masjid al-Islam in Oakland, actually. And let me see. I believe I have him here in one of these wonderful photos. I thought I did. Oh, here we go. Yeah. This guy. And you see he's saying, this is part of a memory video, he's saying, do not be surprised if there's another terrorist attack on America. And of course, neither you nor I will be surprised when there is another terrorist attack on America. But the funny thing about it is what he says, that the Muslims are getting to be so popular. And Islam is getting to be so popular, you see, that the feds are going to stage a fake terror attack to turn people away from Islam and blunt its popularity.
Wait, so just to be clear, the governments, which can't get enough of Islam and want more and more Islam and do everything to shower Islam with praise and to silence critics of Islam, these guys, the same government agencies that call us liars and we're hateful, awful people for thinking that terrorism is bad and so on. These guys actually secretly despise Islam so much that they're going to launch a terrorist attack. And
that's sense. That's it. It's all written in the Talmud. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's Abdul Malik Ali. And then we have Mina Kajavi.
It sounds like a nurse. It sounds like a nurse. It's like a nursery rhyme or something. Abdul Malik Ali, he's Abdul Malik Ali. Yeah, I don't know.
Abdul Malik Ali. He's right there for you and me. Mm-hmm. He's everybody's favorite imam. Abdul Malik Ali.
Abdul Malik Ali. He's there for you and me.
He's everybody's favorite imam. All right. Yes, thank you. We're going to take this on the road. Mina Kajabi is a disabled woman. You can see her here walking with her walker in Iran, and she made the mistake of converting to Christianity and has
Smart.
been sentenced to 6 years in prison. And what was interesting about it was that she was sentenced for acting against national security by promoting Zionist Christianity. Now, this is an old woman who has difficulty walking. She's obviously not in the best of health. How on earth do you think they can possibly think that she's acting against national security?
Now that's interesting. When you said what she was that she was charged, I was thinking that they were going to go with their classic charge with spreading corruption or mischief in the land, based on Surah 5 verse 33, corruption in the land. That's sort of the catch-all. When there's not something specific, you can accuse someone of just a corruption in the land, and this person is spreading corruption, and therefore we have to lock this person up for years or kill the person or something like that. But now they're so geared up. They're so geared up against Israel right now that now they could just apparently just modify that, and any person who doesn't agree with the regime on everything and just say this person is supporting Zionism.
Yep. And so Christianity, converting to Christianity is a matter of sedition because it's an Islamic republic, and so it's a crime against the state. Actually, this is one instance, David, out of thousands where apostasy from Islam really is sedition. You know how the Dawa people, they always say that the death penalty for apostasy is because in the caliphates it was part of being a citizen to be a Muslim, and so if you left Islam, it was tantamount to treason. Whereas ordinary people who convert nowadays, they're not threatening the state, and so there's no death penalty for Islam that applies to death penalty for apostasy that applies to them. But this lady, she is not any real threat to the Islamic Republic, but they're charging her with threatening national security just on the basis of the fact that they are an Islamic Republic.
Yep. Yep.
Anyway,
Going after
Abdul Malik Ali, he's the
going
friend
after
of you and
old
me.
going after old ladies. That'll help them. What is it? Around 40% of the people of Iran still consider themselves Muslims. I mean, most of them have
That's
to
all.
pretend they have to pretend that they're Muslims, but they don't really believe. But yeah, I'm sure seeing things like this will really bring people around to convince them that Islam is the
I don't
truth.
know. All I want to do now is sing the Abdul Malik Ali song.
We got to come
Anyway,
up with a song.
Roya Hashmati is another Iranian lady, and she is not wearing hijab. You can see that. And so she has been given 74 lashes.
Hmm.
And another woman who was not wearing hijab got sentenced to 2 years in prison this past week.
Hey, I just got an idea,
Yeah,
because we always think of products that we can sell. Like, remember we came up with the idea for that what was it, a neck guard for the jihadis who want to strike at your
yeah.
necks. Got like neck armor and stuff, and you could wear we could have like jackets and hoodies and stuff that have a neck guard for when a jihadi goes to stab you in your throat and random.
Yeah,
Wouldn't
steel belted radial on the neck. Yeah.
yeah, it wouldn't be a tremendous deal over here in the U.S. because it doesn't happen as much. But Europeans, we'd sell out in Europe.
Mm.
But I just got the idea when you showed the picture of that woman. We invent a hijab that looks exactly like hair, right? So we invent a hijab that looks exactly like hair. And then women wear this hijab that looks like hair. And then when the morality police pull them aside and say, oh, you're not wearing the hijab, blah, 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 they go, of course it is. Look, it just looks like hair. And they pull it off and so they show the real hair and stuff. So they put it back on. And then the morality police go, oh, okay, that's fine. But over time, morality police will start to think that every woman who's showing her hair is actually wearing
A hair hijab.
a hair hijab, and then and we will save countless Iranian women from being tortured, imprisoned, and raped and sexually abused and killed by
It's
the
a
regime.
It's a great idea. It's a beautiful idea. I think we should run it by Abdul Malik Ali. Anyway, all right, be serious. France. Shall we go to France? What do you think the guy was screaming, David?
I was gonna say the French version of Allahu Akbar, but it's still just Allahu Akbar. Just be with it like a stupid accent. I don't know.
Yes, indeed. It's La Parisienne reported that an individual was immobilized after rushing toward police officers, screaming Allahu Akbar. He's accused of attacking 3 women in the street and in the lobby of a hotel. And then when police came to him, he rushed at them, shouting Allahu Akbar. In another place in France...
Wait, they did what to him? It says they stopped him?
Yeah, they stopped him, but of course...
I figure they give him a medal in France. He
has mental issues. He'll be out.
Okay.
No big deal. As a matter of fact, there was another Muslim in another part of France who walked into the hospital. He wasn't just hospitalized. A lot of the jihadis in France are hospitalized because they're considered to be mentally ill. But this guy just walked into the hospital. The only catch was he was completely naked. And he walked into the hospital and was praying, was found praying in an area of the hospital. And when he was interrupted in his prayers, he grabbed a sharp metal object that he happened to have at hand and screamed Allahu Akbar.
Weird.
Oddly enough, yeah. And let's see. He brandished it in the direction of the officer, who managed to disarm his attacker and isolate him in a room while waiting for the police to arrive. This was an officer of the hospital, security guard of the hospital. There you go. So, yes.
That's got to suck with like a naked dude, right? Because you gotta like disarm him, so you gotta get his weapon.
Yeah.
But you don't want to wrestle around with the guy. He's got his wang hanging out, right? I mean,
yeah. Then you gotta go and get it disinfected after.
And he's a jihadi, so he's a total pervert. Yeah, we've mentioned many times before, but I don't think we can say it enough. All these jihadis, and they all people always conclude, oh, they have mental health issues. They have that sudden onset jihad syndrome, sudden instant jihad syndrome. They just out of nowhere conclude that they have to go wage jihad against the unbeliever. But keep in mind, there are actual people with mental health problems and so on. But what's happened for decades now with the media is the media and politicians, educators and entertainers have been so relentless in telling people that Islam is peaceful and tolerant, that if someone concludes somehow, no, actually, I have to go slaughter people for this religion, you have to be insane, right? You can't read the book and be sane and conclude that it teaches you to violently subjugate people. There's no way. Mm-hmm. So if you're out waging jihad for this book, which tells you over and over and over again to wage jihad, somehow you must be absolutely nuts. And so if you conclude that Allah wants you to slaughter unbelievers in the name of Allah just because he says it over and over again, you must be insane. Put him in an asylum for a couple of years and let him out.
That's it. So David, I got to confess now that those 2 Allahu Akbar stories were just to set up a new thing. There's a new thing actually this week. Usually the jihad is drearily the same, but we actually have a new thing. There was another attack in France, knife-wielding Muslim screaming on the street, attacking a man actually in a car park. And he was screaming something else. He was not screaming Allahu Akbar. Not only that, but this was the 4th incident of people screaming the same thing in France that is not Allahu Akbar.
France, so not Allahu Akbar? See, the options are kind of limited if it's multiple people, so that narrows it down to, something like La ilaha illallah, something like that, or one of the sayings that are about Jews, the Kaibar, or something along those lines. But yeah, you got me stumped, Robert. What could it be?
Yeah, I never would have guessed it. Not in a million years. What it is on the Quran of Mecca. On the Quran of Mecca. And that was, not only did this guy scream this in this car park in Corsica, the island that is the home of Napoleon Bonaparte, but there was also in October, a guy went into a Paris synagogue and he said, on the Quran of Mecca, I will come with an explosive belt to your synagogue and blow everything up. And then in December, another one threatened a police officer, on the Quran of Mecca, I will, this is a family show, David, so what he said he would do, we're going to have to leave out. And then in September 2021, a Muslim came up to Eric Zemmour, a French politician, on the street and said, on the Quran of Mecca, I will smoke you out. So what's wild about this is that it's on the Quran of Mecca, and we always hear from the apologists, especially the non-Muslim ones in the West, that the Quran of Mecca is all about peace and tolerance.
Yeah, I'm legitimately confused by that saying. Like, what could you possibly mean? The Quran of Mecca. So what? The early short surahs?
I think they just mean Mecca as a holy city, and that the Quran originated there. They're not making that distinction that we're thinking of between the early and the late surahs. That's my guess, anyway.
I'm also thinking, like, when you say you're doing something on the Quran, it sounds like you're swearing on the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
But Muhammad said in the Hadith, if you swear by anything other than Allah, you are associating it as a partner with Allah. And so this would fit in pretty well to one of our ongoing criticisms that the Quran is like some additional deity that is, sort of spit out by Allah. But keep in mind, also, according to the Hadith, the Quran can appear as a person, will appear as a person, a pale man. Notice it's got to be pale. But a pale man will appear. This is at the judgment, and this will be the Quran, and the Quran will be testifying about how you treated the Quran. So, yep, he's swearing by this other deity in Islam.
Well, I can understand why somebody would get the idea that they could do this, because the Quran itself is full of so much swearing. And nobody even thinks about that as how idolatrous it is, and how it's a manifestation of polytheism and shirk. Because Allah is supposed to be speaking in the Quran. Why does he need to swear by anything? To swear by something is to say that this is as true. I'm guaranteeing the truth of this by this reliable authority. And so why does Allah have to swear on anything?
Yeah, I've brought this up to Muslims before. So just to clarify for everyone, Allah in the Quran swears by everything. He swears by the stars and the sun and the moon and this and that and Muhammad and the city and all this stuff. And he even he swears by literally everything. Allah swears by the seen and by the unseen. Notice there are only two categories of things, seen and unseen. Allah swears by the seen and by the unseen. So he swears by everything, right? Here's the problem. In the Hadith, Muhammad says that if you swear by anything other than Allah, you are associating it as a partner with Allah. You're associating anything that you swear by other than Allah, you're associating that as a partner with Allah. But guess what? That's what Allah does. So Allah associates everything as a partner with him. This starts to sound like pantheism, not like monotheism. When I've brought this up to Muslims, I always get the same response. The rule doesn't apply to Allah because he's God, so he can do what he wants. But notice what they're saying. Muhammad says this is shirk, and Allah does it. Allah does it. And then the Muslim response is, well, Allah isn't, it's not shirk if Allah does it. Oh, great. So notice, according to this reasoning, that any Muslim dawah guy will tell you that it's okay for Allah. He isn't bound by the rule about about committing shirk. According to them, Allah could go and bow down to a Hindu goddess, and it's fine for him because he doesn't have to follow his rules about shirk. So Allah, this actually makes sense when we read Surah 33, verse 56, and it says that Allah prays for Muhammad. Now there's no confusion. Well, how can Allah pray? Well, he can pray to whoever he wants. He can pray to pagan gods and pagan goddesses. Doesn't matter. It's all fine for him.
Indeed. Just like Muhammad has the special permission to marry all the extra wives, so Allah has special permission to commit shirk.
It pays to be important in Islam.
Anyway, we had AP here, and it was a little bit off the topic that we have at hand, but he said the Quran is a Palestinian. And of course, that refers to the tendency that we are seeing lately to say that everything is Palestinian. I mean, this is a joke, but it goes back to people saying Jesus is a Palestinian, which has become newly popular nowadays. There was a Catholic priest who said it recently, as well as the Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Why are they saying Jesus is a Palestinian, David?
Just because they want to associate everything with Palestine right now, and so it's meant for stupid people. It's meant for stupid, gullible people who have no clue what's going on. So they expect everyone to go, "What? Jesus is Palestinian? Huh? Well, I guess I'm on the side of the Palestinians because I'm for Jesus."
Yeah.
And sadly, this actually works because there are lots of morons in the world.
Speaking of stupid people, we have Queers for Palestine.
Oh, they take the cake.
Oh yeah, and
name me anyone dumber than saying I'm all for people who want to brutally murder me in the name of Allah.
It's really wild because there was a let's see, where is this? This was a letter posted by the Latino Studies Department at the University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana. And it says, this is the quote that I took out of it. I still can't believe that this was written with a straight face, David. You ready for this? You sitting down? We know that a free Palestine is only possible through queer, racial, gender, reproductive, and environmental justice. Oh,
it's
man.
Sure,
Bumper stickers should be issued.
You know what, Robert? I agree. And I think I just want to say, you remember, Robert. You remember all the the Farfour and all the Palestinian children's television, which is just does nothing but tell kids to wage jihad and to blame everything on Jews.
Yep.
They need a new education system over there, and completely made up of the people who do Drag Queen Story Hour. So, and I agree. That is what Palestine needs.
Oh, yeah.
They need... I should tweet this. Palestine needs Drag Queen Story Hour. And everyone celebrating Queers for Palestine and so on, and saying this is the way to free Palestine. What are you doing? Go free Palestine. You have my full, undivided support. If everyone, Drag Queen Story Hour, you drag queens who want to do Story Hour to kids, there are a ton of kids over there who would love to hear you.
Oh, yeah.
If you really believe anything you're saying, which you don't, which is why you would never in a million years go over there. Instead, you'll just babble it here like, I don't know.
Yep, you're right. Okay, now we have more stupid infidels coming from Denmark. And this is Dan Park. Dan Park is a street artist. He's actually Swedish, but he went to Denmark, and as you can see, he crucified, this is his word, a Quran. He nailed it to a tree. Sweet. And he put underneath it burn, and it's a little smaller there, the matches he attached to the sign that said burn. So he was inviting people, this is Dan Park here, and he was inviting people to take a match and burn the Quran that he had nailed to a tree. And in Denmark, it is now illegal to desecrate the Quran. And so Dan Park was summoned by the police. He has broken the Danish blasphemy law. And he actually said, protesting against Denmark's restriction of freedom of expression to appease Islamists is not unnecessary. On the contrary, it is a duty. I think that's it, Dan. You are correct, sir.
Yeah, Robert. So Denmark made this new law banning Quran desecration, Quran burnings.
Yep.
If they made a law like that, wouldn't you want to be like the first person to break the law?
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah.
that would be kind of an honor, right? I mean, if they ever did that here, I'd be the first in line, even if it was something I didn't want to do. Even if it's something I wouldn't ordinarily want to do. Like if they said, if anyone pees on the Quran, we're going to lock you up. And you're like, okay, I wasn't going to pee on the Quran, but now I have to.
That's
Uh,
why we did the Muhammad cartoon contest that ISIS attacked back in 2015 because they killed the Charlie Hebdo cartoonists and they were saying anybody draws the cartoon, we're going to kill him. We thought we have to stand up to
mhm.
that. We have to
and
draw
and
him now.
and Bosch Foston, who won, he actually put that in his cartoon. He had Muhammad in his
Yeah.
cartoon. So, you can't draw me, or I'll kill you if you draw me, or something like this. And then he's got his own words on there saying, "That's why I draw you."
Yep, we had to
In
we
other
had
word,
to give that the award.
yeah. In other words, if you guys weren't killing people over this, then I wouldn't be interested in drawing you. But since you are crossing some lines here, then now I have to draw you.
That's it. All right, we have more jihad, David. UK, a 17-year-old Jewish student at the the Jewish Free School in London, was attacked by two unknown teenagers. But the two unknown teenagers beat him until he said "Free Palestine," and then they stopped.
Hmm. Yeah.
Hmm.
When you said free school, at first I thought you said preschool, and I was like, yeah, they need to watch out for that Hakikachu dude.
Looking for his next wife.
Hmm.
Uh, all right, Germany. A woman and her companion went to McDonald's in Berlin, uh, and she was speaking Hebrew. She and her friend, and a couple of Arabic-speaking men at the next table started to disparage them for speaking Hebrew, and ultimately threw a drink at them and then beat them with a chair.
Yes, that's the rule that we've heard for decades now. Hey, just because some Muslims blew up that building, you shouldn't have any problem with other Muslims who weren't involved. Just because some Muslims killed those cartoonists doesn't mean you have a problem with other Muslims. And
Mm-hmm.
that rule actually makes sense. If someone has nothing to do with something, you shouldn't be blaming them. But hypocrisy. Oh, there's something going on in Israel. Therefore, anyone who's Jewish or anyone who speaks Hebrew has to be publicly harassed, if not attacked.
Yeah, it's amazing. They're always whining about collective punishment, which nobody in the West actually does. And any analysis of the jihad ideology is consigned to the depths as being collective punishment of Muslims for terrorist attacks, whereas they're the ones actually engaging in collective punishment all the time. And the attacks on Jews worldwide recently demonstrate that. Meanwhile, a spokesman for ISIS, Abu Hutaifa al-Ansari, he published a speech, or ISIS published the speech last week saying the fight with the Jews is a religious war, not a social or national battle. It is not a war centered around lands or borders. And then he said, barge into their homes and kill them using different methods, using gunfire, bombs, grenades, and knives. Don't differentiate between a civilian or a soldier, as they both should be targeted. Kill them wherever you find them. Where did he get that? That's extremist, isn't it?
That entire thing, even before you said kill them wherever you find them, just the sort of rhythm of what he was saying was, we all know Surah 9:5,
Mm-hmm.
but he packed in some modern elements and stuff because it says, basically use everything available to you in your attack or your ambush. So yeah, he was doing a modified version of Surah 9 verse 5.
And 860, because 860 says that you should use the steeds of war,
Hmm.
war
Oh
horses,
yeah. Hmm.
to strike terror in the enemies of Allah. I always love the Musin Khan translation of the Quran out of Saudi Arabia that has a gloss on that verse so that it says, make ready the steeds of war, and then in parentheses, tanks, artillery, etc., to strike terror in the enemies of Allah. And, well, of course, Muhammad would have loved to have had tanks and artillery. Speaking of collective punishment, this is the International Delicatessen Foods store, which is in North York in Canada. And it's, you get it there, David? International Delicatessen Foods, IDF. And it actually says IDF on the building, like Israel Defense Forces. And so you see that was the victim of an arson attack. There's the fire truck, the fireman there, and somebody painted on the door, Free Palestine.
So it's they lay down the rule for years. Hey, don't blame anyone who isn't involved in something with this thing that they weren't involved with. Don't do that. And now it's not just, hey, we will blame and attack all Jews everywhere for what's going on in Israel. Now it's, if you even have some of the same initials, if you even have the same initials, so anyone out there with the initials IDF, change your name while you still can.
I'll tell Irving D. Farber. I'll call him right up after this.
Yeah, he gotta warn him.
Yes, indeed. All right, out of Australia, we have another one. This is the Imam Ahmed Zoud, and he was preaching at the Masjid as-Sunnah Lakemba in Sydney, Australia, about what he called the characteristics of the Jews.
Wait, where was he preaching?
In Sydney, Australia.
No. You said the masjid.
Oh, Masjid as-Sunnah Lakemba.
Yeah, that would go well if that Domalika Lika Lee Mecca Hiney Ho, if that guy was there. You know what I mean?
Yes, Abdul Malik Ali at Masjid as-Sunnah Lakemba.
Yeah,
with his new canoe canal. Yes, that's it. All right. Anyway, Ahmed Zoud said, "Jews remain Jews. They are not changed by the passing of time. O Muslims, servants of Allah, betrayal and treachery are among the characteristics of the Jews. Betrayal is one of their traits, and treachery is a characteristic deeply rooted in them." And then he says, "These are the Jews. However, not all of the Jews are like that, just most of them. The most important characteristic of the Jews is that they are bloodthirsty. They love to shed blood." Now, I kind of think this guy's projecting. I mean, after all... Yeah?
Looks like a dirty wizard or something. But this is another issue that keeps coming up. So he's actually more in line with the Muslim sources, which, I mean, the Muslim sources just say the Jews, the Christians. It's not, hey, this particular Jew did this thing. It's the Jews. It's who are the worst of creatures? The Jews and the Christians. Fight who? Fight fight those who do not believe from among the people of the book. Right? It contains these completely general statements against the unbelievers, the Jews, the Christians, and Muslims often respond, "Oh, but Allah doesn't mean all of them. It's just He's talking about this particular group." And why didn't He say that? Why didn't He say, "I'm only talking about this particular group"? Makes it sound like He's talking about people in general. And it's interesting that they give that defense, because they would never accept that from anyone else. If a politician said, "We're going to kill the Muslims," he said, "Oh," the entire world would be in an uproar. Every politician, every journalist would be condemning and blasting this. And if that person were to say afterwards, "What? Yeah, when I said the Muslims, I'm referring to ISIS." No one would accept that. No one would say, "Oh, that's what you meant." People would say, "Look, if you are talking about ISIS, and you're talking about killing people, you need to be very, very precise in your language so that people don't think you're talking about killing all, people Muslims in general or something like that." Every Muslim would understand that instantly if someone said something like that. And yet, when the Quran, the Jews, the Christians, the Jews, the Christians, yeah, it's okay. Allah is saying in general, but He just means particular ones. It's like I don't think you'd go for that if it was on if you were on the receiving end of that.
Yeah, and he never. It's funny how the clear book needs all this explanation. But anyway, that's another story. We should note the jihad in Nigeria is proceeding apace. In Taraba State, 8 Christians murdered. In Yobe State, 14 Christians murdered. Church burnt down along with many homes and cars. In Kaduna State, 41 Christians murdered. Meanwhile, in Niger State, the jihadis set up a toll gate and are collecting taxes from local farmers and residents. Where'd they get that idea, David?
I'm going to go with the Quran for 200.
The Quran for 200 is correct. Chapter 9, verse 29, collected play until they pay the jizya with willing submission and feel themselves subdued. Meanwhile, they abducted a large number of people who were traveling on a highway. That also is in line with the Quran, chapter 47, regarding taking captives in wartime and ransoming or enslaving or killing them. All right. Meanwhile, we have quite a few other stupid infidels. Let's see. Oh, this is one I wanted to make sure to get. My goodness, I almost forgot it. In Paris, they had a mass for peace in a church. It's actually going to be in several churches all over France. In Alsace, in Lyon, and elsewhere. And the Mass for Peace features a musician, Yassine Hawa, singing the Azan. And this was just performed recently at Holy Trinity Church in Paris. The Islamic call to prayer. Now, what are the implications, David, of singing the Islamic call to prayer in a Christian church?
Well, you've got some Muslims who would then say, well, that makes it a mosque.
Indeed. That goes all the way back to a legend, it's not a real story, about the Caliph Umar, the second successor of Muhammad, when he conquered Jerusalem, and Sophronius, the patriarch of Jerusalem, is taking him around the city, showing him the sights, and he invites him to pray at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the site of the tomb of Christ, where he rose from the dead. And Umar magnanimously says, I will not go in there and pray, because if I did, my followers would claim it for a church. Claim it for a mosque, and I want to leave it as a church for the Christians. That story did not actually happen. We have a lot of writings of Sophronius, and he never mentions Umar. He probably never met Umar, if there even was an Umar, but there was certainly the conquest.
It is interesting, though, that these churches thinking that they're going to help something by inviting in a Muslim to proclaim Allah as greater than everything they believe in. The God of Islam is greater than everything they believe in. It's like, does there ever come a point where you conclude that showing how insanely and stupidly tolerant you are is not winning their hearts over to you? You're not their hearts are, it's just built in the mind. Well, if we just bend over farther, then their hearts will melt. Oh, that's not working. They're burning cities to the ground and stabbing people. Okay, well, if we lean even further, then their hearts will melt. And meanwhile, they're groveling on the floor, going, are your hearts melting now, guys? You're not melting their hearts. Okay? It's not going to happen. In their ideology, you're weak, and deep down, I've heard this from Muslims, deep down, they think you don't really believe it, which is why you constantly back down. Deep down, you don't really believe what you're saying about Jesus. Deep down, you don't believe any of this stuff. Deep down, you know Islam is true, and that's why you can't stop submitting when Muslims roll up on you. That's what they think. And I'll just grovel at their feet. That'll show them that confirms exactly what they're thinking. You're proving their point. It's a completely different reason. You don't actually agree with their point, but your behavior is doing exactly what they think you're doing, because you don't really believe in anything.
I got another
What a
one like that.
bunch of dopes, man.
This happened in Toronto a few days ago. You probably heard about this one. There were,
Canada, Canada is the France of North America. I'll just say that. Good.
yeah, they even got a lot of French speakers there, all over
Mm-hmm.
Quebec. Anyway, the the pro-Palestinian demonstrators blocked a highway that is actually the busiest highway in North America, and Toronto police came out and brought them coffee.
Nice. Is that Tim Hortons? I can't tell. I can't tell the cup.
Yeah, I think it might be.
Okay,
I'm
it
not
better be Tim
sure.
Hortons.
In any case, you can see how delighted the guy is, and he even said, "The police are becoming our little messengers."
And notice exactly what I just said, right? Like you're interpreting. So the police are interpreting this. What they're intending is, we're going to show these guys that we're on their side, and then their hearts will melt. Just with this warm coffee, will melt their hearts, and they'll embrace us as brothers, and then there will be unity and so on. And meanwhile, what these guys are thinking is, you guys understand that we're superior to you. You understand that we have a superior belief and a superior prophet and a superior God, and you're coming to serve us because deep down you know we are your lords.
You can see the delight on the guy's face. He understands this is an act of submission, and so he is behaving accordingly. And yeah, you can see also it is Tim Hortons indeed. In this picture, it's clearer. And so they went over to Timsy and they got him some coffee and they got him some donuts. And now everybody is happy in Canada and there aren't any jihadis.
Yep, peace forever.
Yep. Meanwhile, in Austria, at the Viennese Name of Mary Church in Ottakring, there was a fire. And the pastor, whose name is Jesus David Jaen Villalobos, and that doesn't sound Austrian to me, but anyway,
Mm-mm.
he said, "My guess is that this is a targeted attack." And let's see, what's her name? Laura Lena, who is a local politician, said, "Attacks on churches are not only an attack on our culture, but above all, on our peaceful coexistence." And I thought, well, yeah, that's what the attacks are designed to be. An attack on your culture and your peaceful coexistence. She's acting like that's some sort of a thing that she can say, and then the Muslims will say, "Oh, we didn't mean to attack your culture and our peaceful coexistence. We won't burn down any more churches."
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'll just say, Europe's in very good hands.
Yeah, Europe is in such great hands. We got a story out of Sweden. This is Ali Said. And Ali Said is a Swede. You can tell. He looks Swedish. And he is somebody who, let's see, what did he do? He murdered a man in the middle of the street outside of a grocery store in Landskrona. And because he is a Swedish citizen, he cannot be and will not be deported.
Oh, then he'll just get a few years of prison dawa, where he'll be a hero, and
Yep.
uh, and then he'll eventually be released back into society. And what could go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? This is Dominic Murphy. And Dominic Murphy is the counter-terror chief in Britain. And so you know already, just from knowing that he's the counter-terror
Yeah.
chief in Britain, you know that he's a big dope.
Oh no,
And
no, I was thinking this guy's a super genius.
yes,
This one of those 500 IQ dudes doing such a bang up job over there.
yeah, you can tell. You can tell because the heat of his intellect burned all his hair, and so he's bald headed now. So Dominic Murphy said that there has been a startling rise in right wing extremism,
That
and
that's what they look around and see.
yeah, that he's real worried about right wing extremism. He said the number of young Londoners being radicalized by extreme right wing material online and other terrorist ideology is really on the rise. I don't think he's probably that low class. But anyway, he says, we are seeing right-wing terrorism increasingly significant in younger people's ideology. But even then, he goes on and admits later, well, really there are jihadis who are far more numerous. But right-wing extremism is increasing. And what he doesn't tell you, of course, is that a lot of what they call right-wing extremism is people who are trying to do what the police aren't doing. I'm not endorsing any vigilantism or anything like that, but obviously British citizens are, in some cases, taking their matters into their own hands, where the jihadis are acting with impunity and trying to resist.
Yeah, and so notice two things here. One, you are going to get an increase of right wing extremists and everything else, because there are people who are going to be so fed up that they conclude, which is exactly what Anders Breivik concluded. Breivik said, "Hey, we've got this problem here, and you can't deal with it politically. You can't deal with it through journalism. You can't deal with it through speech. The only thing you can do, the only way of dealing with this is through violence." And so that's what he did. But you are going to get people who become more and more attracted to this as they realize that politicians and journalists just always side with the jihadis. You end up concluding, no, there's no peaceful way, and you're going to get more of the more right-wing movements dealing with the problems that they think police and politicians are not going to deal with. In other words, if the girls in your city are being consistently drugged, pimped, gang raped by these Pakistanis, and you see the government just will not do anything unless it becomes an embarrassment at some point, then they'll jump in. But other than that, they don't want anything to do with it. You start thinking, okay, I have to deal with all of this myself. Now the messed up part. So that's one thing. You are going to see an increase in people going far right in order to oppose what's going on. But at the same time, you'll know this from experience, what politicians and journalists and educators and entertainers will do is anyone who so much as criticizes what's going on will be lumped together with the far right people who actually want to go out and kill over these kinds of things, right? In other words, you've criticized Muhammad for commanding his followers to kill apostates. You're part of the far right extremist movement. You're just like Anders Breivik. You're just like any of these other guys.
Yep.
And it's just a sucky situation that they're actually going to. It's the same thing they've done over here. Is they will. Anyone who so much you've been, matter of fact, you've been on the lists. I've been on some of the lists. Southern Poverty Law Center, that they'll put you on the same list with people who actually are terrorists. They want to go kill people, and they'll put you on the same list. Here's another extremist, and oh yeah, what is he doing that's extreme? Oh, he criticizes Islam for promoting this stuff. So wait a minute. So he says the same things the Dawa guys say about what their religion teaches, and he says the same thing that 14 centuries of Muslim scholars have said about the religion, and this makes him an extremist? Yeah, that makes him an extremist. What about when the Dawa guys say it? No, they're not extremists. They get a pass. What about 14 centuries of Muslim scholars who said that Islam teaches? Yeah, that's all fine. That's their religion. So if I just say, hey, here's what the scholars say about this religion. Yeah, you're far right extremist too. You're a terrorist. It's insane.
Yeah, it really is. You know, when we got banned from Britain, Theresa May, who was then Prime Minister, made a speech not long after that where she was boasting about having kicked Abu Hamza and Abu Qatada out of Britain. Now, those guys are jihadis. Abu Hamza is still in prison for trying to set up an al-Qaeda training camp in Oregon. And Abu Qatada was another jihad terrorist. But Theresa May actually said in her speech, I have been strong against terrorism. I exiled, or whatever she said, I banned Abu Hamza and Abu Qatada from the country, and I banned Pamela Geller and Robert Spencer from coming in, as if we were the other side of Abu Hamza and Abu Qatada, which showed in the first place that she's an outrageous liar, because we've never sanctioned any violence or called for any violence or condoned any violence. And we're not remotely terrorists in any stretch of the imagination. But also, it also showed she doesn't have any actual right-wing terrorists. So she had to put us in the role.
Yep, need some right-wing terrorists. And so, wow, this is just...
It's insane.
It's
Anyway,
idiotic.
one more. This is Jana, or not Jenna, but Jana, like paradise in Islam, Haig. And she is in, let's see, where is she? She's in Michigan. And she was arrested, and she was made to take off her hijab for her booking photo by the Kent County Sheriff in Michigan. And the Council on American Islamic Relations has filed a federal lawsuit declaring that she was deprived of her freedom of religion by having to remove her hijab for her booking photo. Now, David, what do you think? Is there any good reason for making a hijab-wearing woman take off her hijab for a booking photo in a jail?
Yeah. So you have a good picture of what she looks like, since I mean, she's presumably there for committing some crime.
Indeed. Also, you see what she's wearing here. It would be quite easy to conceal something, a sharp object, something else like that in
Drugs.
there. Drugs,
Yeah,
indeed.
very common, very common to smuggle in drugs in hair and so on, which you and so sometimes they will want you to kind of pick through your hair and stuff to make sure you're not hiding anything, which you can't do if you can't even take off your hijab. Little side note, by the way, is look, I wear the hijab to so I don't tempt men. Meanwhile, check out all my makeup.
And nose rings.
Yeah, you
Two,
got to look at
not
this.
one,
You
but
got to look at
two.
this. You got to look at this. By the way, and the goal of CARE is to establish the same sort of thing, which they've already done to an extent, but it's to establish the same sort of mentality among the in the government as you find in the UK, where guys can go around, I mean, literally raping young girls, drugging them, pimping them, gang raping them, selling them, and no one will say a word because they're all terrified of being called Islamophobes. That's what CARE is trying to do over here. They're trying to make the same sort of thing where you tiptoe around Muslims because you're terrified of offending them. And this is something that's it's gotten worse over the years, but this already existed way back in the 90s when I was in prison, because I started looking into Islam a little bit because I had some Muslim friends there. And so I had a Quran, but I would have in my footlocker, I had Bibles and I had a Quran. The guards, when they would come around for for the inspections and so on, to search through all your stuff, to look through contraband, they would just grab your Bible and start flipping through there, shaking it out and stuff like this, making sure you're not hiding any drugs or anything in there, weapons any there, and then they put it back down. When you had a Quran, they would say, "Excuse me, sir, could you open your Quran and flip through the pages so I can look and make sure there's not there?" They wouldn't touch it. They wouldn't touch a Quran. They flip through the Bible, wouldn't touch the Quran. So notice it was already in the system. We have to be very, very careful about how we deal with Islam, and it's the point where what I want. What's the impression you get about how the world should be if you just read the Muslim sources? Well, it's Muslims on top, everyone else at best is second-class citizen. And you look at what CARE want, they want a different legal system. They want a different legal system for Christians and Muslims. They want a different legal system. Muslims you don't apply these rules to Muslims. You don't get to, or we'll throw a big old tantrum. And people keep giving into this nonsense, which just makes them go further and further and further until they get the two-tier system that they strive for.
Indeed. It's also a cash cow. The suits like this have been successful in the past because the prison offices, they don't want to get involved in this. They don't want to be charged with this charge of being Islamophobic and so on. So they pay off, and that just, of course, encourages more suits of this kind. Anyway, that's the Jihad for this week. There's plenty more. You can check it out at jihadwatch.org. In the meantime, sing the Abdul Malik Ali song and pray, hope, and don't worry.